currently on the phone with Michaela. She's another musician that reached out about the interview series. So I'm going to go ahead and give her the chance to introduce herself.
Hi, I am Michaela. I'm also known as the CTs. That is my music project. And I also run Golden Poppy Artist Services, which is an artist-focused alternative to management and record labels.
Awesome. That sounds interesting. We'll have to talk about that a bit as well.
Oh, yeah.
But to get started, I always like to, start in the beginning. When did you first find music, and what about it really kind of, spoke to you as something that you wanted to pursue?
My dad was a musician, not in any kind of like huge professional capacity, but he was always playing gigs anywhere he could play around my town and everything. So, I grew up being really encouraged to pursue music from a young age. I always say like a lot of kids, their parents were telling them to be like lawyers or doctors, and my dad was like, be a rock star. So,
Mm-hmm.
so, that's kind of how I found it. I picked up a bass when I was 8, and I picked up a guitar when I was 10. And I started singing in school choirs and taking like vocal lessons at a really young age.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's really how I got into it.
Okay. And so that was kind of something that's always present in your life. You didn't eventually get into it. You could just kind of were constantly motivated to pursue that avenue.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. Like, I just always knew it was what I wanted to do. It was just always the thing. I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so you did mention that you did choir while you were in school. Were at the same time that you were focusing on, vocals and, learning that craft, were you also learning any instruments?
Yeah, I was learning guitar. And I've always kept up on bass too.
Mm-hmm.
But guitar and vocals were my main instruments. I started playing out and playing gigs when I was 13. And, I remember being 14, 15, 16 years old, all through high school, playing with my band, all over Eastern Connecticut, and Rhode Island and stuff, basically wherever we could book a gig, being a bunch of 16-year-old girls, because we were all girls.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd go, it was kind of funny. I would go from there being, playing guitar, singing harmonies, and writing all the songs. I'd be out playing a gig, and then I'd get home at 2, 3 in the morning. I'd come in, and the school was so small. My school only had 300 people in it because I grew up in like the middle of nowhere.
Oh, geez.
So yeah, the office would literally write Michaela had a gig on my late slip, and like all the teachers knew who I was, and they're just like, okay, Michaela had a gig. And then I would go and I'd go into school, and I'd go to choir rehearsal where we would be practicing for like competition at the Berkeley Jazz Festival or something like that. So it was really like or musical theater, one of the two. So it was really, really pretty all over the place.
Well, that's pretty cool. It sounds like you had a pretty a supportive environment going through the school system. Unfortunately, not everybody can say that.
Yeah, my school, it wasn't like a music school, but I had an awesome teacher. I had this really, really phenomenal choir instructor who he was the first person to really kind of like give me value as a musician, like outside of like my dad. He really, really supported me and really encouraged me. And I like to this day, I still try to stay in contact with him if I can. His name was Brian Stevenson, and he just totally changed my whole life,
Very nice. That's awesome. Along those lines, with you doing gigs and everything, in the whole band atmosphere, were you contributing mostly as like a creative front for it, or was everybody kind of contributing equally?
I did a lot, actually. I wrote most of the songs. And then by extension, I would write the chord progressions, and I'd teach our bass player the bass lines. I'd write the lyrics, and I'd write the melody, and then I would provide backup vocals and harmonies. And then we had our lead singer and then my sister actually on drums. And then, other band members would write sometimes too, and they were really great. Our bass player wrote a couple really awesome songs, but yeah, I was really, the creative force behind everything. But it wasn't the CTs. It was a different band.
Sure, definitely. That's what I was going to get into. Has that kind of been, the pretty standard way that you've operated in most of the bands that you've been in, where you've kind of presented the creative front and then also, helped write and everything?
Well, it was before I did that band was called Thrift Store Catastrophe, and that was my first band. Before that, I was a solo artist, and then after that, um, yeah, after that, I just became the CTs, So the CTs is me,
Hmm.
like kind of like a Panic at the Disco situation. Like I will pull in if I'm doing live band, like big full band gigs. I'll pull in like my producer and a drummer, and I'll play as a 3-piece or a 4-piece. But yeah, anything created by the CTs is created by me. I did try like joining a band as like a backup singer once, and it didn't really work out.
I could see how that might be complicated, considering that, it seems like for most of these projects, you've kind of put yourself at the front.
Yeah, and it wasn't like an ego thing. It was more just like, I don't know. It was like this guy, of course, trying to like tell me how to dress and tell me how to pronounce words. And I'm like, I'm a trained opera singer. I'm not going to, mispronounce things on stage. And I'm not going to like purposely sing badly to make you look better. And so that ended pretty quickly. Pretty quickly, I was just like, yeah, I can't do this. I need to just bite the bullet here and be a front woman and just do my thing.
Sure. Well, and that would make sense too, considering, the environment you were raised in, constantly being pushed to strive for that. It doesn't really make sense for you to, settle for, backup singing when, the goal has already been set.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, like I don't know. I liked the project, and like I'm not like I'll sit in on my friends' stuff all the time. I love sitting in and throwing backup vocals on something that people are recording. Um, like I was just on Ram On, the new release for the 50th anniversary of Ram, which was
Mm-hmm.
Paul McCartney and Wings' first album.
Mm-hmm.
So I did like backup vocals and guitar on that because my producer and good friend Fernando Perdomo did it with um, the drummer from Wings. So I love like collaborating with people, but I don't think it could be like the only thing I do.
Sure, definitely. Along those lines, what kind of stuff are you currently working on with the current project that you're in? Are you making new material? Are you currently recording? What's like the trajectory that you're on?
I'm doing a little bit of both, actually. I just released my debut album, Resilient, in May of last year, not this year. And then on the 1-year anniversary, I released the live version of it. So what I'm doing now is writing my new album right now, and I'm laying it all down. I actually had to really use a different method than I normally do because of quarantine, and I'm experimenting with producing and recording myself for the first time, which is really, really fun.
And so, along with the live stuff or the live album that you released, I assume that you're looking to eventually start booking once we can all get out there and everything.
Oh yeah, I've been really blessed. Like I'm in LA, so I've been able to start playing gigs again, which has been just the first gig I got to play out of quarantine. It was like my soul entered my body again. I was like, holy shit. Oh my God. Yeah, so I do this cool thing down in Venice called the Venice Music Box Micro Stage. Shout out to
Mhm.
them. And this guy Stobo has literally built this little wooden box that he wheels around Venice on a trailer. And inside this box, it's like a big stand-up thing, just big enough for you to sit in there with your guitar, and it has a soundboard in it and mics. So it's this little mobile venue, and it was the only place to play towards the end of the quarantine because it could be outside. So it was like the only place any of us could play. And I love going down there just with my guitar and trying out new tunes and seeing how the audience will react. Other than that, I play the Viper Room and Molly Malone's. Those are like my two favorite venues to play here in LA.
Awesome. So let's talk about the management that you're involved in. Describe what that situation is.
So Golden Poppy Artist Services, I created out of, my experience in the music industry. As I got older, I've done the band thing for years, but God, I must have been 22, 23, and I was working in music schools and just really digging deep into the music industry at that point. And I realized I wanted to be involved in the business side because it was actually working with young kids and working with younger artists and helping them develop into being like full-fledged musicians, because I was working at these schools that were kind of like, they were like stage schools. They were like training kids to be pros. And I realized, I'm like, damn, I really want to do this. So I actually was really blessed that I got an internship with Rope-A-Dope Records. I was not in college. I was not doing it for any college credit or anything. A friend of mine had a manager who worked with them, and I showed up at a gig one time that they were putting on, and my friend's manager just grabs me and walks me up to the CEO of Rope-A-Dope and is like, "This is Michaela. She wants an internship and she's great." And I'm just like, "Hi." Hi. So, but that kind of started the whole thing, and I got it. And I worked with the CEO, Lewis Marks. It was a lot of the days it was just me and him in the label, in their office. And I learned so much about the music industry, and they are a label that does things differently. And like, that's why they're so respected in the industry. They, they really treat their artists like family, and I really loved that. So at first I was like, okay, I want to start a record label. I want to start something like Rope-A-Dope. And then I came to LA and I worked for a record label. And it was so not like Rope-A-Dope at all. And it was everything I hated about the music industry. And it was everything wrong with the music industry. And I was like, okay, I need to do something different here, because I realized that artists were outpacing the kind of archaic framework of the music industry. It used to be like this pipeline of you go and play in clubs and an A&R person picks you up and then they bring you to the studio and then the label does all your marketing and funds all this. But it's like streaming and social media has just totally ruined that. Mm-hmm. So nowadays artists are so DIY and they're so hip to everything and they're so in control of their careers that they need a company that can respect that. Mm-hmm. So what Golden Poppy does is we provide a list of services on our website that artists can kind of cherry pick from. And instead of taking like a percentage or, any rights to the artist's work, the artist retains 100% of everything that they create, because I definitely don't believe in taking ownership of an artist's work. Mm-hmm. And we don't take any money that they make off of performing, off of sync licensing, off of anything. They just select from this list of services and pay a flat weekly rate of whatever they can afford. And for some people, they invest that 15%. For some people, they just want to do 5% or whatever. Like they can choose whatever they want based on this list, mm-hmm. and change week to week or whatever. I also don't lock them into a sunset clause. I also don't, require any retainer or anything. It's very open-ended, because I'm like, as an artist, I want that kind of freedom. I want to be able to have somebody to call on that can help me with the things I need help with, but give me the power to do what I know how to do. Right. So that's it's basically how Golden Poppy works. And I thought it was like an insane idea, but I actually brought it to one of my mentors at Rope-A-Dope, and I'm like, "Is this crazy?" And he's like, "No, this is a really good idea."
Yeah, it sounds like the type of like new kind of business model that could potentially, cause disruption, and even more so than the social media and streaming has.
Yeah, well, and that's what my artists have been really responsive to is they're like, oh, they just love that they're completely in control,
Hmm.
you know? And
Yeah,
that's
that
what
it makes sense.
I think, yeah, I think record labels, I really think that record labels and management companies, like the old versions of them, they did not give their artists enough credit. They really like the old school kind of model, they really do not think their artists are as smart as they really are, you know?
Well, it
Like
seems
I
like
have had
in the old way that the industry used to run, it seems more along the lines of like they were trying to convince the artists that without them they couldn't make it, kind of thing.
right, and in reality, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
In reality,
It's your good old classic abusive relationship.
literally though. Oh my god, you nailed it. And that's the thing. I'm like, whoa, girl. Like you don't need that guy.
Exactly,
Like
exactly.
that's what I lead with. Like it's like, no. You don't need the record labels. The record labels need you. Or they don't exist. The bookers need you. The agents need you.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you're not just some fucking commodity to shuffle around. You're creating this shit. And all we're doing is getting it to the right people. Like all we're doing is connecting people that are going to vibe with your art. That's it, you know?
Absolutely. So
But man, an
moving
abusive
on
relationship is
a
crazy.
little
Sorry.
bit, since you've had so much time working in the music industry in so many different capacities, what are some of your favorite memories about that time that really stand out to you?
Oh man. Well, I guess I'll name three. Um, the first was when I was really young. I was 16, and our bass player was our booking agent because DIY hometown band. Um, and she went to this local spot in our hometown, and they refused to book us because we were all girls. They would book the boy bands. They would book the teenage bands that were boys. But the guy said nobody wants to hear a bunch of little girls play.
That sucks.
And yeah, so we went to another spot in town, and the guy paid us $300, gave us free food all day, and we packed the place. And we ended up getting like a residency there all summer. So it was just like, and we could play there anytime we wanted to if we wanted to make any money. So that was one of my favorite memories. It was kind of like a Schadenfreude moment. Like,
Yeah. Nice.
um, the second greatest memory is probably like my time at Rope-A-Dope, like professionally, like my time at Rope-A-Dope, and when I started to like be able to really work Golden Poppy full time, that was good. And my biggest one is when I got to play the Whiskey a Go Go for the first time, and that was really an intense moment for me because I had, I like worshiped the Doors, I worshiped Janis Joplin, I worshiped Jimi
Hmm.
Hendrix,
Hmm.
and there's like this hill that you come up when you're coming up to the Sunset Strip, and I came over the crest of the hill and I saw the CTs on the marquee of the Whiskey a Go Go.
Nice.
And it was like, I started crying. It was like the most mind blowing moment. And then I got to sit on that stage. I got to sit on that stage and play. And it was my first gig in LA. And I was like, holy shit, is this real life? So that's probably, I mean, I could name a ton more, but those got to be like the top ones.
Sure. Yeah, those are very cool memories.
Thank you.
So, what are like your social media links where people can take a look at what you're doing, and also your management service?
Yeah, mine is at Michaela D567 on pretty much everything. Instagram is where I'm most active. TikTok, I do a bunch of like music industry TikToks. And then from there, in all of the bios, you'll see the CTs, which is my band, and Golden Poppy Music, which is my company. And then goldenpoppymusic.com is my website.
Excellent. And I always like to give the person that I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So, just a message that you kind of feel you resonate with.
I think it would be everything is in perfect divine order. That's probably it. Like just oh, that and you'll never be the best. I know that sounds weird, but I feel like everybody gets so caught up in trying to be the best, but that doesn't exist. And there will always be people better than you at something, and you should always take the opportunity to learn from them instead of, being salty that there's someone better than you, because there's always going to be someone better than you.